Hi there, I'm Matt Vanacoro, and I'm really excited to give you a little virtual tour of Strum Guitar from Waves Factory. Strum Guitar is a Kontakt library. You can browse to it on your samples hard drive and simply go to that Instruments folder and double-click the Strum Guitar NKI file. When you open it up, you're going to have this selection of all 4 guitars loaded up and ready to go. Down at the bottom in the keyboard area, you can see the different playable regions. We'll get to that in a minute because this is a really unique instrument that you can play in a pretty cool way. So clicking on any one of these instruments will disable it, and you can work with just one at a time or any combination of all 4. So if I want to hear just the acoustic guitar, I click on that one. Now, what's going to happen? On the left side, where you see these light blue keys, that's where you're going to play a chord. You can make the chord any way you want, in any inversion you want, and it will be analyzed and automatically voiced properly to match the guitar sample. So if I play a simple C chord, you'll see I'm holding down those 3 notes. Now I've got a couple of different options. The first option are this bank of notes right here. Okay, these notes will trigger some rhythm strumming patterns. So if I hit it and hold it, if I change the chord, you can hear it dynamically updates the chord as I go along, and I've got a bunch of different patterns available. Some even with some mutes in. And by the way, I've got access to muted patterns as well. So if you hear these keys, these black keys force a mute on each step where there's a note in the sequencer. Now above that, I've also got the option to strum individual strums, a down strum and an up strum and a mute. So I can make my own pattern in real time. If I'm using that, I might want to go in and adjust the release a little bit and add a little reverb to make sure that any quick little changes get covered up. I've also got some sound effects up here, some strums of the open chords. So if I play these upper notes on the keyboard, I can get some other harmonic type strums, some squeals and slides. And you could drop them in your sequence as you're recording just to give a little bit more realism. So it's an incredibly realistic instrument. Again, if I combine this acoustic with, say, the electric 12-string, you'll hear both instruments playing at the same time. It's a really neat effect. Now, if I think that one is a little louder than the other, or I want to pan them a little separately, you can do that by going into the mixer. So I'll click on the mixer, and for example, from there, I can pan the acoustic hard left and the electric 12-string hard right and really separate them in that stereo field. So that really gives that realism. And if I wanted to enable all 4, I could separate them even more and adjust the mix a little bit and say, you know what, I want this to be a mostly acoustic mix with a little bit of electric. Now I can turn on those other guitars here as well. So if I go back to the main screen, you'll see they're all enabled now. I'll go ahead and give a little strum. And it's great. If I hold down that pattern button on the right hand, it gives me time to lift my left hand up. So it's actually really quite easy to make all these different chords. You'll notice I can hold that strumming pattern, and every time I touch a different chord with the left hand, I don't have to hold the chord the whole time. So that's great. I've also got this doubler here. So if I wanted to just double the instrument, I can go ahead and do that. So let's raise up the doubler a little bit here. All right, let's check it out. So I'll bring the doubler down. You can hear it a little more focused in the center. As I bring it up, it's really spread wide. And this is great for those, the 12 strings where you really want them to sound huge. You can do a little doubling there and get some giant epic sounds. So you can kind of jump right to super finished tracks right away. And at the bottom, I've also got the option to send these out to different stereo channels if I wanted to. So if I wanted one acoustic going out, one set of outputs in Kontakt, and then the acoustic 12-string going out a different set of outputs, that's totally possible. Now, I'll leave it in acoustic setup for now, and I'll go to the effects. And from there, I've got individual effects that I can put on each one, and then a master effects chain as well. So if I wanted to add to my acoustic, for example, a little bit of reverb, I could just do that, go ahead and grab some reverb, and let's check it out. So I should hear it just on that one single acoustic guitar. Give it a little bit of wet mix. There we go. And if I wanted to put something on the acoustic 12-string, I could do that as well. So I could give a little chorus to that 12-string guitar. Let's see now. That's cool. That really shimmers and spreads it out. And I've got a whole chain, and that chain can be totally separate for all the different instruments. And you'll notice you can turn the effects on and off with the power button right next to the effect as well. And this is great so you don't have to remove an effect if you're not using it at the time, but you want to be able to keep the settings where they are and just flick it back on again. I've also got a master effect as well. So if I wanted to, I could just go ahead and put a little reverb on the master. And then that would just ensure that from now on, both guitars, any of the guitars running through, are going to get a nice amount of reverb. There we go. Pretty great sound. So that's the effects page. Now, if I move to the right here, this is where the fun really begins, and that's the sequencer. So I'll open up the sequencer and take a look. Now, look at that. I've got a set of country strums right here, and if I click on that, I've got a whole bunch of different genres that I can open up, and that will give me all these different preset sequences. So if I want to get more of a rock set, I'll go ahead and click rock, and you'll see I've got many different patterns for rock. So let's check it out. And now this one's got a bit of swing in it, so you'll see I've got sequence controls down here. If a song isn't a swing song, I'll just take the swing out of it totally. There we go. But if it is a swing song, look at that. Instantly change the vibe of the song. Now, every single one of these notes is set up for a different genre. So you can set them up to whatever you want. I can make this first one rock if I want to. I'll go ahead and make this rock 2. And then I'll make the second one rock 4. Let's say I'm staying in the rock genre, right? So I'll hit C, rock 2, get D, rock 4. Now, you can go ahead and double the speed by adjusting the length of the sequence notes, or you can go to the global tempo and normal half or double the tempo from there. Now, I've got this intensity knob right here on the left, and that's going to allow me to adjust how strong those strums are once the sequence starts. So if I play it, and I adjust the intensity, you hear it's getting those upper velocities. Or pull it back and get some more of those lower velocities. And of course, it scales according to the strum power that you've got indicated in there. So that's really neat. The steps knob adjusts the number of steps in the total sequence. And one of my favorite things is that if you do decide to go to 8 and then go back to 16 again, you don't lose your work. So if you've been working on this custom pattern, you don't lose everything by going down the number of steps. Swing, of course, adjusts the swing in the strumming. So if you want to get a little jazzy, or a little more straight, you've got it. And finally, offset allows you to really match rhythmically what's going on in your full song. So if you want to offset the strum samples a bit so that you miss a little bit of the beginning of the strum but pick up a little bit more direct attack, that's going to be great. So if you listen here, I'm getting everything, the pick raking all the way down, but if it's not quite rhythmically fitting in with the rest of my piece, I can change the offset a little and get any part of that strum to be on the downbeat. So that'll really help you customize it with the rest of your sequence. So the other thing that's really fun is that I can actually put in mutes. If I click in right here, the little X's, that's going to add some mutes. So if I go back to that original one, there we go. And let's say this little empty strum here, I want to make a mute. I'll click on the little X and add a mute to it. So let's put a mute in over there to just even it out, the whole pattern. So that's pretty cool. The little X will indicate a mute. Now, if there's no X checked off, it's just going to be a rest, completely blank. You can adjust the volume of every strum just by clicking in the little column and moving it up or down. That'll adjust the volume. And remember, if there's nothing in there, you'll have a rest. Or you have the ability to, again, add them in at different velocities. And if you look underneath each sequence step, you'll see that there's a little up or down arrow indicator, and that indicates whether it's a down strum or an up strum. That's easily changeable and has an effect on the sound. So the patterns are super customizable. Now, after you've worked with your pattern a little bit, if you want to save your customized copy, it's as simple as clicking on this little drop-down menu here and hitting Save as a Copy. After you click Save as Copy, you'll have the option to name it, so I'll just call it My Rock Strum. And hit OK. And now I've got My Rock Strum down there in that menu, and it'll start to save all my user presets down there. Now from there, you can also go ahead and rename it or delete it from there. So if you decide, you know what, I don't really like that pattern, I'm not going to use it anymore, I can go ahead and delete it, and now all my presets are clean and organized. Now, after the patterns, you've got the ability to adjust the sounds over here in the Settings tab. And from here, I've got a couple of different options. The first is round robin. So that's how many different samples of the same strum you're going to hear. So right now, if I just hold down like a D chord and I go ahead and do the individual strumming, each one is a little different. And it's rotating through 4 different repetitions. If I go to 1, they're going to be very similar. So you got a little more consistency, a little bit of ease of use on the CPU and memory, or a little more realism, more like a humanized player. So you can control the amount of humanization you're getting there. Now with dynamic range, of course, if I'm strumming, I can strum really quiet or louder. Quieter. But I can get rid of that if I want to. If I want it to be a little more consistent in volume, I'll ratchet the dynamic range down. And that's going to keep it a little bit more consistent. The velocity curve is great for adjusting and compensating for your MIDI controller. So if you've got a MIDI controller that you're getting to the upper level very quickly and you don't like it, you can go ahead and adjust the curve and have it take longer to get to the higher level samples. Or you can do the opposite and have it get to those higher level samples a little quickly so that you're not pounding on the keyboard so hard. Now you'll hear you got all those noises, right? You can adjust the volume of the noises independently. So as you've got them in your sequence, if you want them to be not quite as loud, you can go ahead and adjust them separately. And finally, we've got an envelope, so you can really adjust the sound of the character of that strum. If you're getting too much of the pick sound for your liking, it's quite possible to adjust it. So if you listen to my strum right now, I can actually just adjust that attack a little bit and slow it down. And we've got a little bit less of that pick going up against the strings. And as you hear, you can make some really creative effects as well with that. You can adjust the release in the same way, and that's going to allow you to have a little bit more freedom with how long you have to hold the notes down, so it not just affects the sound, but it affects the way you're playing. So it can be a little bit more forgiving on your playing and timing. You can go ahead and adjust that to really dial in the most realistic playing style as you approach this instrument. You can adjust the envelope of all the guitars or each one separately. So it's a pretty fantastic instrument. And as you can hear, when you've got all 4 going and they're separated to different levels, panned to different levels of the stereo field and going at different volumes, you can get some huge sounds. really, really gigantic and ginormous. So that is Strum Guitar, a great way from Waves Factory to get guitar tracks into your compositions, productions, and songs without having to actually break out the old six string if you are a keyboard player. So check it out from Waves Factory.